All right, welcome to the 2020 State of the Otis, where I tell you guys what it's like to run a travel blog during a worldwide pandemic. Not really. We've been doing the State of the Otis for a few years now, more than a few years now, where I kind of just look back and tell you what I've been doing. And let's start with the website, oddthingsiveseen.com. That website, Otis, is the hub of all my activities, my author activities, my podcast activities, my random writing for other magazine activities. And every year I think it's dead. I think it's dead because its main purpose from day one was to chronicle my adventures to oddities. And that purpose gets sidetracked or whatever, knocked back a bit from the books and from whatever else I'm doing at the time. That's why I always think every year, like, oh man, I didn't take care of Otis. It's dead. Otis is dead. After, 12 years? I always think that. But then I go to the travels tab of Otis, and you can do this yourself, and count the oddities for 2020, and it's 41 this year. But the reason why that happened is because the oddities these days, instead of being kind of exclusive to Otis, some of them are from this year, but most of them come from my other media sources, right? So when I do a podcast episode about an oddity I've never written about, I still post the photos to Otis. And the Halloween, right? The Halloween season, where I kick up, my productivity on Otis 1,000-fold, that adds to the tally. So those 41 oddities all came from those, and some that were kind of unique to Otis as well. So it's alive and kicking somehow, despite me not, feeding and watering it like I should. It's doing fine. It's thriving. It's great as a home base for all my stuff. My other media outlets, the podcast. The podcast was a down year. We did only 9 episodes this year, so almost one a month, but not really. And I'm up to episode 27. We've done 27 total, only 9 of which happened this year. And that's 100% because I'm finding it really hard, just in general, to get behind a mic. And I know the irony of saying that while I'm behind a mic. But it's really a lot of pressure to sit down and do a clean take for 45 minutes, which I will cut down to 20 minutes. And, look forward to that. When I write, I just sit down and I do the research just like a podcast, but then I just write and I can edit it and I can quit it and come back the next day or quit it for an hour. The podcast, I'm kind of all in, it's performance in many ways, and it's very, very uncomfortable for me. So that low number of podcasts is not at all reflective on the podcast itself or my ability to find content. It is 100% me getting my face behind a mic. I hate it. I hate it to death. But I do love podcasting. I love podcasting. I love editing, and I love putting it out there. But man, sitting down is a problem for me. But again, it's still alive. It's not dead. I'm not retiring it. I'm going to keep going at it. It's not going to be once a month. Or it might be once a month. It won't be once every 2 weeks like it started out. This year, I got to do something new, which I've never done before, and that's write for New Hampshire Magazine. So I had a column where I wrote about a New Hampshire oddity every week. And then I also wrote, a handful of pieces for their print magazine as well. And this was a jaunt for me. This was something that was just kind of an enjoyable side trip because it's something I always wanted to do. When I first moved to New Hampshire and I first started getting published at random places, right? Rue Morgue Magazine and Paris Cinema and Boston Globe, I tried to get published in New Hampshire Magazine because I wanted to embrace being a New Hampshireite. I moved here in 2008 and I wanted to kind of embrace that with both hands. And it didn't work out. It couldn't get anything started there, but I did meet the editor, and that relationship just kind of, got maintained over the years until this year they approached me and said, "Hey, do you want to write for us this year?" And I was like, "Sure, I'll definitely do that." And I've had a lot of fun doing that. They've literally done given me no constraints for what I write about for the column. So that's been a lot of fun. And again, it's given me an opportunity to write stuff that comes to Otis afterwards that I might not have gotten to. So the Patreon I need to talk about as well. That is really where all my real-time stuff is happening, honestly. So the Patreon, the Otis Club, where you pay a little bit of money and you get a bunch of perks, but really the main perk is that newsletter. I write a newsletter every single week. I have not failed at writing a newsletter in 4 years. And that is like a 1,500-word newsletter. It's not like the usual author newsletter where I tell you about my books and where you can buy stuff and sign off. There's content in here. Content that I would normally write for Otis is in here. Content that is up to date. What I saw yesterday ends up in the newsletter. There's news. There's bonus photos. It's kind of, if you're trying to keep up with me in a real way, that's the way to do it. The Otis Club. And this year we've grown bigger than we've ever been. We're in the triple digits as far as membership goes. We're at 100 exactly right now. I think we're a little bit more than that during the fall season. But normally the Otis Club runs 40 to 60 people. And this year, it jumped up. It was really kind of an amazing thing. Some of that, I don't know what that is, honestly. Some of it was we offered yearly subscriptions, where instead of a monthly subscription, you get a yearly subscription, and then you get a discount. But, it's grown, and it's one of my most rewarding activities. I get to meet people personally. I get a record of my weeks. It's almost journaling in a lot of ways. And I just really appreciate every single member of the OTIS Club, even the OTIS Club members who couldn't hang out for more than a few months or a year or so. Man, you guys are so close to my heart for just supporting me in that such a direct, personal way. So my biggest efforts these days are the books, though. That is where I put most of my attention, most of my hours in. Obviously, all this stuff I'm talking about is a hobby. It's not my day job, but all this stuff, I have a set number of hours I can do a week on this stuff, and most of those hours go to my books, because my books are my big push. This year, we had Cursed Objects come out, and that was a big landmark for me for a couple of reasons. One is my first nonfiction book in 4 years, since A Season with the Witch, which was 2016, if you can believe that. And then, 2017 was Death in Douglas. That was a novel. 2018, I don't think I had anything come out. 2019 was 12 Nights at Rotterhouse. And now I'm back in the nonfiction world, so I didn't leave that completely. And it's a book I'm very, very happy to have done. And it was by far, or maybe not by far, but without equivocation or caveat, it was the biggest and best debut of any of my books. And again, keep in mind, this is a plague year. The year that debut books and books got really beat up because there were no conventions, and there was not any showing up in person events. So the fact that it still ended up being my biggest debut, I don't know, it speaks to the book, and the idea behind it, and the motivation behind it, and the team behind it. It wasn't just me; it was the team at Quirk. So that was my big one, but that was written in 2019. I did some editing for it in 2020, but that thing was mostly wrapped last year. I worked on 2 books this year. I wrote 2 books this year, and one of them is a middle grade horror novel, a children's horror novel that doesn't come out until 2022. Now, I have a novel coming out next year, a children's horror novel, The Smashed Man of Dread End. But that one, again, was written last year. So I did some editing on it this year for the publisher, but mostly that thing was wrapped. So I didn't actively work on it. It's just waiting to come out in August. So while I'm waiting for that to come out, and while Cursed Objects was coming out, I was writing the second book for HarperCollins, which is another children's horror book that doesn't come out until 2022. So I'll stop talking about that one. It's kind of irrelevant for 2 years. That's kind of weird for my headspace. But the other book I wrote this year was an adult horror novel. So I've only had one adult horror novel come out. That was 12 Nights at Rotterhouse. And this will be my second one. This one's not under contract. It's free as a bird. It doesn't start going out till January. My agent will start taking out in January to various publishers to see if anybody wants this book, which I really hope they do, because it's a hugely personal book for me. And a very special one to me, and a very important one to me, and very, 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 very different from 12 Nights at Rotterhouse in almost every possible way, other than how personal it is. 12 Nights at Rotterhouse is personal to a degree. This new book, which I'll sit on the title for a little bit, is super personal to me. So that's what I've been working on. I wrote 2 books and edited 2 books. So I think that's it. Let me check my notes. New Hampshire. Oh, the Halloween season. I forgot about that Halloween season this year. That's also a big source of OTIS content, honestly. Besides the 41 oddities, a bunch of which came from the Halloween season, a lot of my random blog posts came out of the Halloween season. So the Halloween season goes from September 1st to October 31st, 61 days, and I did 61 pieces of content. That's articles, that's diary entries, that's videos, that's podcast episodes, that's newsletter issues. So I did a ton of content, and that 2 months of content pretty much fixes my averages for the other months on OTIS. But I loved the Halloween season this year. And it sounds like a weird thing to say because it was a COVID Halloween. But because we didn't have any grand plans, we weren't trying to do anything beyond just have a nice, cozy family Halloween season. We went every weekend. Me and Lindsay got into a rhythm of going out and doing, a day-long road trip every single weekend in New England. We had to stay in New England, obviously. But, man, we saw such sights. It was such a beautiful time, and posted a lot of photographs that Lindsay took that were amazing that I'll look back on for the rest of my life. It was just a great time. Those road trips were so, so good, and our time together was so special, and seeing what we saw was great. And I don't know, they were just good times. And, again, brought to you by the OTIS Halloween season that gets me motivated to get out of my house. 2021, I have no idea what's going to happen. None of us do, I think. I can definitely tell you right now I have 0 trips planned. 0. I don't even know where I'm going. None of us know the vaccine situation and the COVID situation and the rules situation for traveling. I don't have anything planned. I do know the Smash Man of Dread End is coming out in August. That's going to be a huge one for me. It's with HarperCollins, my first Big Five publisher. And, I feel like, I don't know if it's true or not, but I feel like the reception to that book is going to, determine the course of my book career. But I'm really excited about it. I tried to invent a new monster in the Smash Man. That's what I tried to do, invent a new monster that I hadn't seen before. We'll see if it worked. You can tell me once you read it. And I think that's it. Yeah. So I guess the state of the Otis is, in a phrase, I'm still around. I'm still doing it. I haven't disappeared. Thank you guys for following along with me this year. If you guys did any of that, if you participated in any of that, whether it's the Patreon, the buying a book, listening to the podcast, reading Otis, visiting Otis, celebrating the Halloween season with me, I really appreciate that. I really do. I mean, again, I would do all these things by myself, Halloween and visiting stuff and trying to write books, but sharing with you guys has been, if you guys weren't as receptive as you were, sharing it wouldn't be a part of my life. It wouldn't be fun. So thank you for that. That's it. So I hope you guys I hope you guys got through the year okay. You probably didn't. I know a lot of people got scathed and it was a rough one to get through, but we'll see. You keep going. And thanks for listening, and drop me a line anytime on the socials, by email. I'm here. I'm in this room probably. So